Welcome to Season 2 of the Erotic Realm podcast, where we explore the world of eroticism, one erotic realm at a time. I'm Em, a sexologist and kinkster. The mission of the Erotic Realm is to humanize desire in all of its forms, including darker desires. Each episode, we dive deep into the psychology of desire with a sexpert, everyday kinkster, or a kink expert. This is an independent podcast. To support it, please consider becoming a paid subscriber at psychologyofdesire.com, where you'll also find deep dives into desire and surveys that you can participate in. You can also sign up there to get the podcast delivered directly to your inbox when it's released. And now for today's episode. The following conversation explores intimacy, vulnerability, and why so many people struggle to feel safe in connection. I'm joined by Rachel Dorneanu, a relationship and sex therapist who works at the intersection of communication, emotional safety, and embodied connection. We explore how growing up in conservative environments shapes people's relationship to sexuality, the myths that many carry into adulthood, and why intimacy often feels difficult, not because people don't care, but because vulnerability itself feels unsafe. We also talk about arranged marriages, communication in relationships, and the role of emotional safety in creating real connection. This is a conversation about connection, safety, and the courage that it takes to be seen. Enjoy. Before we get started, I have something very excited to announce. The podcast has been nominated for the Australian Adult Industry Awards in the category of Best Podcast. So if you'd love to vote for the Erotic Realm to win this category, it would be amazing to have your support. I'll put a link to the voting website in the show notes, and I'd really appreciate it if you could give it a click and a vote, and who knows, maybe it will win Best Podcast. Thank you so much for listening and for your support. Hi everyone, and welcome to the Erotic Realm. Today we're exploring the psychology of intimacy with Rachel Dorneanu. Hi Rachel.
Hi, awesome pronunciation of my name. Very proud.
I tried hard. So first of all, can you share with us what it is that you do?
Yeah, so I wear many hats, but I would say that I'm an ASECT certified sex therapist. That's within the U.S., and that's for Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, and Vermont, if you happen to be a U.S. listener. And then I'm also a board certified coach, so I can work with anybody in the world.
Amazing. What first drew you to studying relationships and human sexuality professionally?
Oh, sure. Okay. Well, I will try and keep this story quick.
Doesn't have to be quick. You can go for it.
I was always like the mom friend of the group, and I always loved talking about, like, I don't know, the sex and the intimacy and the first kisses and all the cute, mushy courting details of my friends.
Mm-hmm.
I hopefully my mom's not listening to this, but I would go and purchase Cosmo magazine and read like all like the sexy tips and relationship tips in those magazines and hide them under my bed. And I cleaned out my room a few years ago and was shocked by how many issues I had of Cosmo under my bed. But past that, it was just something that was really fascinating to me. I took a sexuality class in undergraduate, and at first I thought it would be just the psychology of sex kind of course, but the way the professor taught it was more of the evolution of desire and how we mated in previous times and how we have gone further into today and how courting works in different cultures. And I was just mind blown. I said, well, this is what I'm supposed to do. So from there, got my master's in counseling and made sure that I went to as many things that mess with my comfort zone as humanly possible, so I could be exposed to things like Sex Down South that is held in Atlanta, Georgia in the U.S., and Frolicon, if you guys have happened to have heard of Frolicon in the U.S. as well. Just different conventions and different sex and intimacy enthusiast kind of cons to do that. And from there, I decided, why not make my specialty sex therapy and sex coaching? And I decided to take the very long journey to become an ASECT certified sex therapist. And so that just happened, I think, last summer. So that's been quite a journey to make that happen.
What's involved in that journey? You mentioned that it's long.
Oh, it is. I happen to have two babies in the whole time
Uh-huh.
span of it. And from there, so it's around, oh, don't quote me. We could always go to the ASECT website and look at the exact specifics. But from what I remember, it was maybe 50 hours of supervision from an ASECT certified sex therapist supervisor. And then I had to do, I think it was 300 client hours that were sex therapy specific. So it wasn't just like, hey, they mentioned sex once and it counted. It was, we had to have full sessions based around it. And I needed feedback on how I was offering therapy and those kind of services with clients. And then from there, I needed recommendation letters from my supervisor and two professionals. And my favorite part was something called a SAR, SAR, and that's a sexual attitude reassessment. And with that, you are set up for, how do I word this? They want to make you as uncomfortable as humanly possible.
Okay.
Over the span of a few days of going to see certain shows, certain movies, reading certain material, interacting with certain people, certain venues. So my SAR, I chose to have in Amsterdam in the red light district, which was so fun. We got to interact with a sex tech company at their headquarters. We were able to walk around and do a scavenger hunt around the red light district. We went and spoke with people that were sex workers. Just everything was fascinating. And to sum all that up, I had to do a personal statement of why I wanted to be a sex therapist, how I plan to commit to bringing awareness and health to intimacy and to all of my clients that I serve. So it's quite a journey to get there. It's something I'm very proud of. But also, if anyone is looking for any sex therapists near them, you can go to the ASECT website. It's AASECT. I believe it's .org, but don't quote me on that. I can send you show links later if I need to.
What an amazing process. Is the SAR about showing you where you might have biases as well?
Yes.
Okay. That's so...
You were spot on. And so there were definitely moments that I was a tad uncomfortable, and I said, okay, well, why is this? Where is this coming from in terms of, is it a cultural perspective, societal, the way I was raised, watching things around people that I didn't know? What were the things that messed with my comfort zone, and how would I ease myself and my nervous system to make sure that I could serve the client in the best way possible?
That's so important.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
And you mentioned that you had a conservative upbringing around sexuality in particular. So how did that shape your approach to all of this work?
Sure. So for anyone that's listening that is from the U.S. or knows of the U.S., I'm in the part of the south of the country, and it's considered, quote unquote, the Bible Belt. And so when you are usually raised in the Bible Belt, it's very common in society to have some sort of religious expectations of people. There's a certain way to carry yourself, of you're expected to attend some sort of church or service every Sunday, maybe a Bible study group. It's just what's done. And so there's certain counties of the state that I'm from that are very conservative, very religious, politically, religiously, spiritually, all the things. And so with that, I was raised to be a blend of things, honestly. It's all different denominations under Christianity. And the most recent was with non-denominational, which is interesting, a non-denominational denomination. But with that, it's something that was just part of the norm for me. I didn't know any different. And then I got into college and different life experiences and started to learn to if anything, expose myself to different ideas, different spiritual practices, different religions to better understand other people and my clients that I work with. And it's been a fascinating journey of figuring out what works for me, what my beliefs are, how my values fit with the things that I was raised with and might not fit with me now, how I want to raise my children and be part of my family.
Mm. Sounds like a huge learning process.
Oh, daily.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure there's many people listening because we do have quite a large listener base in America who have also had these conflicting messages around sexuality, curiosity on one side, and then this restriction on the other. What patterns do you see in clients that are raised in conservative environments?
Oh, sure. The things that pop in my head immediately is shame and guilt and manipulation and usually not great communication skills within the family of origin, which leads into their romantic partners, platonic friends, and so on and so forth. It shapes their entire being. When my hope would be through therapy, coaching, ideally their childhood would be, secure attachment styles and understanding of communication, not pushing things under the rug and ignoring them and avoiding them. That curiosity is just sometimes asking questions, sometimes is experiencing something new. It's not that it's good or bad, it's just something that you're learning. And so I wish there was more of a reframe, especially in America, of around society, because that is not the case in the past and certainly not now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, curiosity, please.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the common myths about sexuality that you see people carrying into adulthood from their childhood?
Oh, at least from the conservative side, and definitely the clients that I work with, because I'm in a very conservative um, part of town, that you are, if anything, I think of a lot of like should and should not way of doing things. I mean, even when you think of religious things of, thou shall not do this, the 10 Commandments and the expectations around that is black and white. You're doing this or you failed. You do this or you're now full of guilt and you're forbidden from this congregation. That a lot of it is very hurtful and not accepting, and personally not the way of certain spiritual leaders in the religion. But with that, the things that I think about is so many things. Don't have any sort of intercourse. Don't be with anyone of the same gender, of any of the same sex. You need to be only man and wife, period. No curiosity, no exploration, no asking questions. This is the way it is. Which in some instances, it helps to have a black and white way of thinking as you're growing up in a sense, but as there's more cognitive development, it's good to know more of the gray area and to question things and want to understand the why. I just talked with my husband about that earlier this week, of like understanding the why behind things makes conversation so much more interesting rather than just it's right or wrong. So that's been really, for me at least, very, very interesting to talk to clients, because I've worked with people that are from very conservative backgrounds, but even I've had some couples and individuals from arranged marriages. I'm in a very, what's the right word? Southeast Asian part of the community that arranged marriages are somewhat common. And being able to work with people in that community is fascinating, because that's not something I was part of, but also to how to help them communicate and determine almost a psychoeducation, sex ed 101 for adults of this is what this might look like for you, but what actually feels good for you is not just what does this one book say of how to do things, is what feels good for you, for your partner, for your relationship. And encouraging exploration and curiosity within those arranged marriages is so fun.
I don't think I've actually spoken to anyone in depth that's had an arranged marriage. I'm so curious. What are they like? Do you notice that they have different struggles than people that are in relationships that aren't arranged?
Yeah, the things that I think about off the top of my head is that they, depending on how they feel about it, first of all, if they like that they're in an arranged marriage, then it's a similar setup to the couples that chose each other in terms of enjoying each other's company, getting to know one another, having great emotional and physical intimacy over time. All of that feels the same. If it's someone that was not, tickled and excited about being in an arranged marriage, then that might look very differently of, I'm just trying to survive this marriage. How do I navigate this in a way to keep my sanity, keep my kids safe, and so on. But the certain difficulties regarding intimacy with arranged marriages that I've seen is there's typically a lack of education, there's a lack of experience, and not that is bad or good in terms of the lack when I mentioned that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more of they come to me with those concerns of, I don't know what positions might be an option besides missionary. I don't know things I can have my partner do to help to get me to be physically aroused. I don't know the difference between desire and arousal. Like we're doing sex ed 101 kind of stuff of how do you want to talk to your partner? How do you want to express yourself and show confidence and not be shamed by the way that your body looks in the sunlight versus the expectation of being in the room with the lights off and under the covers. Mm-hmm. So it's been fascinating, and I am loving everything that I'm learning.
That sounds fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
So how do people begin reclaiming a healthier relationship with their sexuality after growing up with shame or silence around it?
Oh, that's a loaded question. We can make a whole episode about that. The things that I think about would be to acknowledge that the things that you learned are things that shaped you, but they don't have to define you. That it can be, these are things that I learned. I appreciate that this was a way to guide me to, this was part of our family values, our family morals, and that kind of thing. I'm choosing to not be part of X, Y, and Z practice at this time, or going forward, and finding a way to have acceptance and grace around the things that shaped you because they did bring you to where you are today. And to be able to take that and determine, does this fit with my values? Does it fit with my morals? And from there, anything that might come up regarding shame and guilt, I think I use a lot of nervous system regulation in my therapy and my coaching, because I think if we don't have a calm nervous system, we're not going to want to be intimate. I explain to clients often of, if you're in hyperarousal, if you're in fight or flight, if you're in freeze mode, or in your what's the right word, playing possum, if you've heard of that phrase before, that you're not going to want to have sex if you're running from a lion. It's not going to happen. So you need to make sure that you have a calm nervous system. And if you have certain things that come up regarding anxiety or shame that leads into more of the depressive feelings, that we can notice what's going on in our nervous system and find ways to get back into something called the window of tolerance, of where we feel open, safe, curious, adaptable, curious, and feeling somewhat quote unquote normal human emotions and experiences. So that's where I would probably start from there. Tell me where else you want me to go from here, because I could talk about this all day.
Oh, no, that's amazing. So is that, my next question was about your work with couples and around communication, and wondering what the biggest misunderstanding was about when couples talk to each other about sex. And I'm curious to know, is it what you just mentioned about not understanding about the nervous systems, or is it something else?
Oh, sure. So I definitely make sure couples are aware of their nervous systems first, because from there they're able to regulate themselves. And then at times when it feels safe, that they can co-regulate together if it's a safe partner. From there, we can go a bit further out of it. So like if we're thinking about our brains, we have calmed the primal part of our brain because we are in a somewhat steady and stable headspace in terms of like the primal and the mammalian brain. But past that, moving into more of the prefrontal cortex and where we have decision making, and that's the part of the brain that finishes by the age of 25 or so, that we are able to have different communication styles. So I think about that as well. But to rewind a tad, that there's attachment styles. And so I'm not sure how much you've talked about attachment styles on here before.
Yet.
Oh, okay. I'm going to try and find a way to share this briefly. So there's 3 main attachment styles. I know there are sub versions of all of this. You guys are welcome to, if anything, take the attachment quiz. I can send a link to Emma if that's helpful. Mm-hmm. But with that, there's secure attachment, and there's anxious attachment, and there's avoidant attachment. So secure is when we're feeling, if anything, similar to that window of tolerance stuff I just talked about, that we're feeling safe and open and curious and able to be vulnerable and share things with our partner, and we're okay with time together and time apart. When it's anxious attachment, we think of someone that's kind of clingy or needy or needs a lot of reassurance, that they're fearful of their partner leaving. And then there's also avoidant attachment, of where they will try and push away and not be around that partner. They'd rather be by themselves, not because they're introverted, but because it doesn't feel safe to open up and be vulnerable with that partner. It feels better to push away rather than to cling, like the anxious attachment person. Mm-hmm. I mean, I could go into the history of it if that's helpful, but it's fascinating. It starts with when we're infants and we were with our caregivers, and it goes into platonic relationships, into familial, into romantic relationships with our partners. And with that, okay, where was I going? Come on, brain. Nervous system we covered, attachment we covered, communication. Okay, so with communication, the things that I've noticed, at least in the US society, is that we do a lot of you language. So you did this, you did that, you screwed this up. It's you centric when we talk about things. And so it could be criticism, defensiveness, contempt, stonewalling. Those are like the 4 main ways we handle conflict in an unhealthy way. I'm not sure if you guys have covered the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse.
We haven't.
Oh, no. Okay. I'll give you more psychoeducation.
Love it.
So it'll be a tad of a monologue, but I think it's so important for anybody to listen to this. Mm-hmm. So I just mentioned the 4 horsemen. So that was criticism, defensiveness, contempt, and stonewalling. Criticism sounds like you did this, you did that, you screwed it up. It's critical. With defensiveness is kind of shying away from responsibility. It's playing victim. Contempt is the really nasty one, of where you knock your partner down a peg. Maybe it's like insulting and just really mean, nasty. It's typically one of the predictors of divorce. And then stonewalling is when you're emotionally flooded. It's not just that you're mad or that you're sad. It's your brain has gone offline. You are not in a headspace to have a healthy conversation anymore. And you're operating on fight, flight, freeze, fawn, any other just survival techniques. So with that, those are the 4 main ways we handle conflict in an unhealthy way. And then I can talk about the 4 main ways we can combat that.
Please.
So the way to combat criticism is to do something called gentle startup. And so gentle startup, instead of you did this, you screwed that up, it's, hey, could you help me with X? Mm-hmm. Could you make it a priority this evening to do X, Y, and Z? I'd really appreciate it. It's a gentle way to lead into something. The way to combat defensiveness is to take responsibility. As a fellow defensive person, this is easier said than done. Mm-hmm. But with that, you want to, instead of saying, well, I know I did this, but you did that, and shying away from responsibility, it's, hey, my bad. I forgot to, take out the trash yesterday. I'll make it a priority this evening. Thanks for the reminder. And then the way to combat contempt is to describe your own feelings and needs and not describe your partner or the person that you're talking to. So a helpful sentence formula would be, I feel X emotion when X situation happens, and I need X. So an example would be, I feel frazzled when we're late to a dinner reservation, and I need for us to be on time so that I can be calm, regulated, and enjoy our quality time together.
Mm-hmm.
So that can be really helpful. And then the way to combat stonewalling or emotional flooding is to do something called physiological self-soothing, psychobabble, find a way to calm down. So they've done studies that cortisol is the stress hormone that's released from your brain into the bloodstream. And it takes 20 minutes, which is a really long time, by the way, for stress to leave your bloodstream. So anytime that you are feeling stonewalled or emotionally flooded, you're not in a headspace to continue that conversation at that time. So that's when you might need to say, hey, time out. I need to go for a walk, or a code word of something like blue banana, something that's just going to really end the conversation quickly, and say, hey, I need to go for a drive, for a walk, to go watch an episode of Friends without commercials. That's about 20 minutes. And find a way to step away from the conversation. And then if you feel ready to talk about it after 20 minutes, fantastic. If not, then you let that person know, hey, I'm still not in a headspace to talk about it. Let's maybe chat later this weekend, and we can still make sure we're not avoiding it completely. So that's the 4 horsemen.
Mm-hmm. So one of the biggest conversations that's been happening in the kink world recently with my followers is how to determine if your partner is a safe partner, or someone that you're dating is someone that's going to create safety for you.
Whoa.
How do you go about determining that, maybe when you're dating or if you're in a relationship already, if safety is occurring?
Oh, another full episode of fun information there. You got some good questions. So the things that I think about, I know that it was a trend, I want to say like a year or two ago, of green flags versus red flags for people. Things I'll do with clients is to have them write down, based on this either play partner, romantic partner, friend, family member, whomever, that what are some of the green flags they have? Maybe they're really kind and understanding and have great eye contact and body language. And then maybe a red flag was, maybe the red flag is that they are, I don't know, maybe really, really horrible with conversation, and they tend to ghost you or text you once a month, right? That I don't know, for me personally, that I need more communication than once a month, if I'm with some kind of romantic or play partner. But with that, figuring out any sort of green flags and red flags, I always go back to the nervous system and your body. Your body knows what's going on. Listening to your gut instinct, to how your body feels when you're around them. Do you feel safe? Do you feel like you can be vulnerable and share things? Or do you fear to be judged? Do you fear to not be in a headspace or a body space that feels okay for you? Determining boundaries. What are the boundaries in terms of communication, in terms of play? If you need to set up certain negotiation scenes and then you need to have multiple check-ins during the scene, or are they able to follow along and it's a great scene from start to finish because you guys are on the same page? How do you communication is a big piece, as I'm sure you and your listeners are aware of with that. What else do I think about? Communication, nervous system, green flags and red flags. I keep thinking about the TikTok guy. I can't remember for the life of me what channel it is, but it's this guy that's running around with this giant red flag across the field or the green flag across the field. He cracks me up every time. But if there's anything that your brain is doing that of a giant flag waving in your face, please listen to it. If it's green or red or yellow or purple, just to take note of those things that are going on, any triggers that might be coming up. And especially if you mention any triggers, concerns, certain situations that you're not comfortable with and they keep pushing you, please be mindful of those things, because that means they're not showing respect to you and to the certain relationship, whatever it might be that you guys are currently in.
Great advice. Thank you.
Sure.
In your work with couples, so heterosexual couples, do you find that there are general gendered differences in how men and women show up in therapy?
That's a fun question. Currently, a lot of the couples I work with are heterosexual. I've had a few that are same-sex couples. And the things that I notice is probably because the area that I'm in is that they are very, for the heterosexual at least, they are very traditional. That the man is the head of the household, the woman is the housewife, the mom, the caretaker, the house manager. That tends to be pretty common. And then the things that I've noticed with the same-sex couples is that it is a bit more egalitarian and more equal. Of they find ways to split home task, work task, kids, pets, family members, care, all of that feels a bit more equal and egalitarian. So that's been my notice of that. But then in terms of how they come to therapy, let's see, typically what I've noticed with the heterosexual couples is that the men are way less likely to want to come into therapy. They feel that there's such a societal expectation of men that being vulnerable is wrong, sharing your emotions is wrong, that needing to come into therapy is the worst thing in the world, that your marriage is falling apart or your partnership is falling apart if you have to come to therapy or coaching, when in reality, I would much rather you notice that there's something that just doesn't feel right, that you guys have tried to have conversations, but it didn't go the way that you feel like it needed to, that you might need a bit of a mediator, a third party observer and listener that can help you to guide to have healthy conversations and work on that to be more preventative rather than leading to things that are going to have more turmoil and have more drastic concerns later on.
Yeah, my next question was, how does a couple know when they're ready to seek out a therapist such as yourself? But I think you've just answered that one.
Oh, lovely. 2 for 1.
So I want to bring in a quote here that touches on something central to intimacy, and you've mentioned it a couple of times. So Brené Brown, who is an academic researcher and storyteller who's spent 2 decades studying courage, vulnerability, shame, and empathy, and her research has led her to say this about vulnerability. Vulnerability is the birthplace of love, belonging, joy, courage, empathy, and creativity. So when you hear this idea that vulnerability is the birthplace of connection, how does that show up in the couples that you work with, and do you agree?
So I will say Brené Brown is one of my favorite people to listen to, read about, watch the Netflix specials, all the things. I think she's doing some really beautiful research and work. I know that there's some sort of coaching program of sorts that she's done in the past, and I've been like dying to get on a wait list to be part of it at some point again. But besides my obsession with Brené Brown, the things that I think about with vulnerability, to me, that is the sexiest thing you can do with a partner, is to be vulnerable. And the reason that I say that is not just like, oh, like the man, the woman, the partner is sharing something. Yeah, but it's that you're bearing your soul. And I know that sounds cheesy as hell, but you're bearing your soul, you're bearing your mind, your body. It's emotional intimacy, physical intimacy, ideally not in the therapy room. But with that, it's so powerful to be able to sit down and have eye contact and open body language and be able to talk to your partner and say, hey, this is what scares me. This is something that I'm worried about. Can you help me? or I want to express this to you, but I don't know how. Is there a way that you might receive this differently, and we can make sure we can work on this together and have compromise? Or these are some things that I experienced in my childhood or my past relationships and partnerships, even my past play partners, and I want to make sure this doesn't happen again. Can I trust you and be safe and vulnerable with you? That's sexy. That's like a whole nother level of intimacy. And I wish more people in the US and America were open to doing that, because it's really powerful stuff.
How can you begin practicing being vulnerable? Because for people listening, they might be thinking, oh, I can't sit down and have a conversation like that. That's too much for me. How can you begin the process?
Oh gosh, I have so many ideas. The first thing I think about is, can you say it to yourself in your head? Can you form a sentence that, even if it's not said out loud, it's just you closing your eyes and thinking it out, thinking it out in your head of, I'm worried about this, or I'm excited about this, I'm curious about this. And starting out with just having the courage to put it into a sentence rather than just a brief thought that passes your mind. From there, if it feels comfortable to say it out loud, or if not yet, maybe writing it in a journal or in a voice note and then deleting it, or writing it on a piece of paper and setting it on fire, something cathartic. Practicing all of that first. And then if it helps, to journal about it a bit longer from there. And if you feel like you can talk to a trusted friend or a trusted support system, that you explore it there. Maybe consider therapy or coaching. Obviously, that's a shameless plug for me. But past that, if you can't share with your trusted people first, and with ideally your trusted self, how can you get to sharing it with a partner? So I would say almost like an exposure therapy kind of thing, that you're exposing yourself to different levels of being vulnerable and sharing certain things that you're excited about or worried about. And then when you feel ready to talk to your partner or a loved one about some of these things, that you might be in a place to say that out loud. And sometimes having the direct eye contact and open body language and facing each other feels really intimidating, because I know that firsthand. But also, I think of anyone that's neurospicy or highly sensitive, that sometimes that direct, for lack of a better word, confrontation and interaction with another person in their body vicinity feels too intense. So maybe it's sitting side by side at a movie theater, or side by side in a car, in a taxi, and being able to share that conversation side by side rather than that direct two persons facing each other kind of interaction.
Great advice. Thank you.
Sure.
And you mentioned there about highly sensitive people, and this is another group of people that you mentioned that you work with. So I'd love to bring in a piece of research here, because it connects closely to this work. Psychologists Aaron and Aaron published one of the foundational studies on sensory processing sensitivity, what we now commonly call highly sensitive people. And the research suggests that roughly 15 to 20% of people process emotional and sensory experiences more deeply than others. And that heightened sensitivity can show up as greater empathy, deeper emotional awareness, but also a greater susceptibility to being overwhelmed, which makes intimacy and relationships particularly interesting for highly sensitive people. So when you work with these people, I'm sure that there's some people that interpret being highly sensitive as weakness. How do you help clients reframe that sensitivity?
Oh, you've got some good stuff. This is fun. So the things that I think about. So first is that there's a really helpful acronym for the things you just described. Cool. And it's DOES, DOES. And so that's the depth of processing, overstimulation, empathy, and sensitivity to stimuli. So when you're thinking about anyone that's highly sensitive or an HSP, oh gosh, I definitely have people that come in that have ways of thinking about their personality trait, their genetic inheritance, is a bit of a nature-nurture debate. But with that, They definitely come in seeing it as a weakness. They'll come in with low self-esteem, with really, really mean inner critic. Um, whether that's from parental influences, authority figures, just being really perfectionistic and intense with themselves. It all depends on many factors. But with that, I would say let's go ahead and at least notice the things that you're bringing up when it's an unhelpful trait, because let's at least acknowledge what might be a trigger and how we can work on having coping skills and certain tools and techniques that can help it to be less intense. But agreed, when we get to a reframing place and we're ready to not be, horribly critical of ourselves or others, is that we say, okay, within that does acronym I just talked about, the depth of processing, that, oh, hang on, that they are able to really enjoy music. Like I know for me, my HSP sense that's like really heightened is sound. So with that, I will listen to music and get emotional, or I'll be at a loud concert or a really bustling crowd, and I will be overstimulated and it will be just too much. But within the good things is that when I experience beautiful music, I feel it not just like, oh, it's a nice song. It's I am overcome with this wonderful experience of almost like euphoria sometimes of how beautiful the music might be. So it's being able to have appreciation of music or certain textures, any of the senses that are there with overstimulation. If anything, you're able to acknowledge those things and maybe model it for your children, for your family members of like, hey, if things are getting too intense, we're going to gain really lovely awareness of our nervous systems and how to calm and regulate. And with the empathy piece, I think that's probably one of the biggest strengths of being a highly sensitive person is that you're able to not just have the sympathy piece of, oh, that sucks, or been there, right? Like that's such a sympathetic way of doing things compared to empathy of being able to put themselves in another person's shoes and listen to their story. That's why things I've noticed is like a lot of therapists and therapy clients tend to be highly sensitive in some way, shape, or form because they are so in tune with others and the body language. They notice small attention to detail and organization, and being aware of, let's say that they're at a party and they notice that someone looks uncomfortable. They immediately pick up on that and can find a way to make sure that they feel more comfortable. The empathy is being able to just notice the smallest things, but also to help someone navigate something. They're very caring, nurturing people oftentimes. Mm-hmm. And then finding strengths, it's maybe writing down as simple as, here's all these traits that I'm not loving about myself and how do we reframe them? So almost a 2-column page of these are my concerns about myself and how can we reframe it to be nicer to ourselves. We can play with that too.
Mm-hmm. And what about in terms of romantic relationships? How does high sensitivity show up within a relationship?
Oh, so many things. Okay. So with that, it could be, at least from a romantic piece, you might be able to really be in tune with your partner, which is beautiful. To have that empathy with them. And then in terms of a intimacy, sexual capacity, it's things that you might be aware of with the environments, maybe overstimulation in the bedroom and the scene that you're in, that you might need certain textures or not need certain tools or toys to play with. You might be different kinds of HSP is that you can either be attention seeking or attention avoiding. And I'm not necessarily attention per se. It's more of like stimulation seeking. So ignore the attention piece, the stimuli seeking. Mm-hmm. So maybe they're really excited by new and novel experiences and scenes, which makes it a really fun adventure for the other partner, that they're always seeking something new and they don't want to just do missionary all the time. That can be super fun. I'm pulling a blank right now. How else can an HSP be affected? If they get overstimulated, they might want to make sure that they have ways to have aftercare, which is lovely, but also even like pre-care. So I've had some clients where they need to have weighted blankets before they're intimate or before they go and do a scene, or they'll enjoy having blindfolds or earplugs so that they're not overwhelmed by the visual or auditory stimuli. That they might feel comfortable being tied up or weighed down during an intimate act, and finding ways to explore that within themselves, and then ideally talk with their partner and find out ways to make sure that they feel supported.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
So, after years of working with relationships and intimacy, what do you think people most misunderstand about connection?
Gosh. Oh, that's a good question. Can you repeat it one more time for my brain
Sure.
to process?
After years of working with relationships and intimacy, what do you think people most misunderstand about connection?
Oh, the things I've noticed is that they expect it to be automatic, like it's in the
Mm,
movies. It's all of this, mythical movie expectations or fairy tale ending expectations of, oh, well, we're supposed to just click, that we're just supposed to have a soulmate. We're supposed to automatically be lovely in bed together. We're supposed to just have great conversations all the time, but that's not normal
mhm,
and not common, because you have to put in the work, whether that's romantic, platonic, familial, any sort of play partners, that you want to make sure that you build a trusting connection with the people that you're with, not that you just expect a connection. It takes time to build that. It's the vulnerability piece that we've talked about earlier. But it is time, effort, but also being willing to make mistakes and learn from them and have trial and error, almost like the metaphor of throwing spaghetti against the wall and seeing what sticks.
mhm,
That there may be a way that you communicate something and your partner didn't like it. Okay, understood. Tell me what you'd like to hear differently, or how could I come about that better next time? Getting feedback and having forgiveness and gentleness with one another. And that builds a really solid connection.
mhm. Beautiful advice. Thank you. I
Sure,
noticed
thank
that you integrate therapy, coaching, and yoga into your work.
you. I do.
How does reconnecting with the body change someone's experience of intimacy?
Oh, like a million times better
Mm-hmm.
to briefly summarize it. But with that, there's times that I'll have an individual that comes in and says, oh my gosh, I had the worst day. I can't imagine talking about anything. I just want to take a nap. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's maybe just release some of the stuff out of your body first and see how you feel and go from there. So sometimes we'll just break out into child's pose for a few minutes in session. And that is so nice. I always have a yoga mat behind me in my home office, and I have one in my physical office just in case we need to break out a random yoga pose during session, which is fun and spices things up. But besides that, being able to slow down, because so much of at least American society is go, 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 rush, keep going until you crash. That's not helping anybody. That's a really horrible way to treat your nervous system, which tends to lead to heart attacks and all sorts of other health concerns. So please don't do that and hit burnout and crash out. But with that, being able to tune in to yourself and turn off the outside world if you can, with deep breathing and noticing your body, certain sensations. You might notice when you place your hand on your chest and your belly and you take a deep breath that maybe your breathing is typically really shallow and stays in more of your upper chest than using a full belly breath
Mm.
with diaphragmatic breathing. That could be a big piece of it. Being aware when you're laying down at night while you're trying to fall asleep. Are you aware of your pelvic floor? Is it really tight and tense, or is it really loose and insecure, or is it just feel stable and secure with your pelvic floor when you breathe in and when you release? That you notice those things when you slow down and tune into what's going on. So with that, you're able to notice those sensations in your body. And from there, you might even decide to tune in to your body and certain sensations and textures that you enjoy. It doesn't have to be a sensual experience or a sexual experience or a self-sex or solo sex experience. I mean, if you want to, go for it. I love it and support you. But if it's more of just exploring textures of, oh, I really love when I take a shower and then there's fresh, clean sheets on the bed. Oh, that is one of my favorite things to experience when I go to bed. That you notice those certain things and you can explore from there. Maybe feathers are your thing. Maybe satin's your thing. Maybe really rough sandpaper's your thing. Whatever, floats your boat. I'm going to support it. But I love for people to tune into their bodies first and then be able to explore intimacy and connection with themselves and their partners.
Beautifully said. Is there anything else you would like to discuss that we haven't spoken about, a topic that we haven't explored, or anything else you'd like to share with the listeners today about their intimacy, about how to explore themselves, or any other learnings?
Oh my gosh. I have so many things that I could share, but I know we have a time limit. The things I would basically say is to start learning your nervous system now if you have not started it already, because it's connected to every part of your body, your brain, your experiences. It's not just a cute yoga experience in Shavasana at the end of a yoga class. So be mindful of that mind-body connection and be open to exploring and sharing it with others. But besides that, I've also got a Amazon storefront that has, oh my gosh, I want to say at least 300 different resources at this point that are categorized based on trauma, anxiety, relationships, sex, new therapists and coaches, a million things out there that could be really lovely to explore if you're needing a bit of guidance and therapist recommended kind of resources to explore on your own.
That's amazing. So where can people find this and more about you and your work?
Sure. So the Amazon storefront, I can send that link to you for the show notes. But it should just be like amazon.com/Rachel Butler Counseling, I believe. Don't quote me though. Past that, my company is Sage Counseling and Wellness, like Sage Advice. And so that can be on most social platforms. And you can find my website with Sage Counseling Therapy and Wellness.com or RachelDorneanu.com. And we can work together.
Wonderful. Well, Rachel, thank you for joining me today and showing us that intimacy isn't just about attraction, it's about emotional safety, vulnerability, and the willingness to understand another person. I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Yes, me too. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you again. I'm Em, and this has been the Erotic Realm Podcast. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Erotic Realm Podcast. This is an independent podcast. If you want to see more episodes made, you can support it at psychologyofdesire.com by becoming a paid subscriber and entering the realm with many other supporters. The mission of the Erotic Realm is to humanize kink and desire in all of its forms. And we can't do that without you. Until the next time, stay perverted.